All right, good evening. I've got 7:01, so let's go ahead and get started. We'll call this special board meeting to order for the Anchor Bay Board of Education, November 12th, 2020. We'll start, as always, with the Pledge of Allegiance, if we could. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I solicit a motion from the board to make a change to the agenda to move the general business review of Return to Learn plan up in front of open forum? I'll make the motion. Do I hear a second? Oh, I guess, Mr. Middlestack, can we take attendance to make sure we have everybody here? I apologize.
Okay.
I think they're muted.
Here.
Okay.
Here.
Mr. Witt? All right, Mr. DeRue's here.
Here.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Moses?
Here.
Ms. Brookmeyer?
Here.
Mr. Middlestack?
So I apologize. Again, soliciting a motion. I heard Mr. Moses make the motion to change the agenda. Do I hear a second? All right, not hearing one. Motion will fail. We will begin with the open forum. At this point, the public is invited to comment on the Board of Education agenda. Those who wish to participate need to fill out a brief request form stating their name, address before the meeting. Comments about specific employees should be directed to them personally and should not be included in the public forum. I will remind everybody again that the limit is 3 minutes for speaking time. So I know most of us have smartphones, so if you want to put yourself on the timer, I'll be doing the same here, and I'll be asking you to wrap it up. And I would just prefer if we could wrap it up within 3 minutes rather than make me interrupt you in the middle of a thought. But we do have a lot of people that need to talk, and we have a lot of topics to cover. So without further ado, Mr. Sizemore, where shall we start?
I don't see Kristen. See what the next one. Jacqueline Mosley. See if I can find her.
Jacqueline Mosley, do we have her unmuted?
Not yet. Hold on.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead, Ms. Mosley.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I am a teacher for a different school district, but I do have a child in both the lower L and the secondary building in Anchor Bay School District. And I can only speak to my own personal experience and my own opinions, but I do have, I only received one positive COVID letter from our specific elementary building since we returned face to face, while the number of positive COVID letters sent home from the past couple weeks from the high school is really concerning. My family personally has been through the whole inconvenient process where my child was identified as a close contact and was sent home to quarantine for 2 weeks and then forced to switch to remote learning. I understand that any decision regarding anyone's health and safety, whether it's a child or an adult, is going to weigh heavily on anyone. While a reconsideration to in-person instruction is being reassessed, I do stress that there be a different learning plan for secondary versus lower L. I'd like to remind you that elementary classrooms are being self-contained to their room, while secondary students are more mobile throughout their building. So they're visiting multiple classrooms, seeing different students. My high schooler does have an IEP, so I know we can all agree that remote learning isn't best for any child, but I do believe that secondary students do have the capabilities to tackle remote learning, while elementary students just do not. My younger child, he really needs those hands-on classroom environment and experiences and the social interactions that come with attending school in person. So knowing that any decision that's made is going to disappoint some and please others, I could really do see a benefit in the health part of maybe putting a pause to in-person learning for the secondary. And I am confident in our Anchor Bay secondary teachers' abilities to, provide great instruction remotely, but not for the lower L. And since there's been significantly less positive cases in being self-contained, I just really hope to see those students remain in person just to give them that consistency to our young children. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Crystal Ortega.
Is she unmuted, Tim?
I sent the message to her to unmute her.
No. Crystal?
Need to unmute.
Crystal, it looks like you're still muted if you can unmute yourself.
Are you able to unmute her at all? I hit send her the thing. And I had trouble with her the last one.
Why don't we circle back up to her, Tim, and move on, please?
Okay, let me unmute.
Oh, I think we got you now.
Yeah, it sent me the thing, I hit it, and then it wouldn't unmute. I don't know, it doesn't let me unmute. I possibly reserve until after the discussion about the return to learn plan, because I think you guys may answer that.
Okay, so would you be like to be moved to the next open forum comment?
Yes, if that would be okay.
Thank you. Next, Tim.
Rick Petro. Rick Beach Hill.
Rick Beachill.
Out there.
All right, Tim, why don't we move on and then try to circle back to Mr. Beachill? Back to Beckhill.
Hello?
Oh, Mr. Beckhill, we can hear you.
Hi. Sorry about that. I had a couple quick questions / statements. I said, if you guys do return to a virtual learning, when are the extra Chromebooks that we never received the last time going to be distributed, and where?
Our district too. We don't have enough time.
Is the board going to suspend all extracurricular activities, football, chorus, band, etc.? And are you open to having school Zoom meetings during non-school hours so that parents that have jobs that are deemed essential can help their children with logging in, being there for technical help if needed? Because the first round of elementary age Zoom meetings earlier in the school year was an utter failure. Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent, can you answer the question about the laptops at this point, and we can defer everything else until the board has a chance to speak?
Yeah, we're waiting on about 2020 laptops right now. We believe that we're going to get about 300 of them before Thanksgiving, and the other 1,900. We hope that they'd be in November, but that may be pushed back to December or January.
I noticed this microphone wasn't on, so I'll repeat. 2,000 laptops have been ordered. We've been waiting on them. We're anticipating that 300 of them will arrive prior to Thanksgiving, and we probably will not see the remaining until possibly after the new year. Next, sir.
Maria Subic.
Maria Subik.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, ma'am. Go ahead.
There we go. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Hello, my name is Maria Subik, and I'm a special education teacher at Neldred Elementary, and I'm also a parent to a kindergartner who goes to Great Oaks Elementary. So today I speak on behalf of the Neldred staff and a parent of an elementary student. Starting out the year online was really tough on both ends as a parent and a teacher. I saw the frustration in my students' eyes behind the computer screen as they did their best not to hold back their tears. Since we've been back to school, I've seen the light back in my students' eyes. I've seen their smiles and I've heard their giggles, and I've finally been able to get academic support and encouragement that they need and deserve. This past month, I've seen my students grow so much, and I hope that can continue. I've never been more proud of my students, and I've seen their behaviors at an all-time high. They've never been so appreciative of being here, and they are making the most out of it. They wash their hands like it's their job. They've never questioned having to wear a mask, and they never complain about staying in their room during lunch and specials. They've truly amazed me. This is working out at the elementary level. I can only speak for my building, but I feel completely safe at work every day. It's been so nice to have the normalcy of going to school and giving my students what they need and deserve. I've heard the struggles of middle school and high school teachers and what they are going through, and I feel deeply for them. I've also seen firsthand the sub shortage we are currently experiencing, which is why I would like the board to consider having middle schools and high schools go remote and allow elementary students to stay face-to-face. The safety procedures set in place at our elementary buildings are effective. This is evident by the low number of positive cases. According to the COVID case reporting on the Anchor Bay website, as of today, there's only been 6 positive cases in the elementary buildings and a total of 22 exposures. This is marginally very low. Elementary students cannot be left alone, and they do not have the same attention span that the older children may have. These kids are the ones that have the most to lose if we were to go remote. Also, having middle and high school remote would hopefully help the sub shortage because the subs wouldn't have to be spread so thin. This year has been undoubtedly the most difficult year for all of us, but going online right now would only make it harder for elementary teachers. We want to be in school. We want to be face-to-face. We feel like this is working. And I want my daughter to stay in school and to continue the amazing growth she has made. So please keep elementary face-to-face. These children need to be in school. They are safe, they are happy, they are thriving in this environment. Face-to-face learning is essential for elementary students. During a pandemic such as this, some jobs are considered essential, such as police officers, firefighters, nurses, and doctors. And I ask that elementary teachers be given that same consideration, because I feel like we are essential and our students' social emotional well-being depends on it. So thank you for your time. And this is written from some of the Neldred staff: Melissa Latos, Sarah Lee, Cindy Bowman, Leanne Smith, Emily Flint, Leah Sacker, and Bridget Baumgarten. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Andrea LaRosa.
Andrea LaRosa.
It's a mistake that I selected to have a comment. I don't have anything.
All right, thank you for letting us know.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it?
That's it.
Do we have anybody we need to circle back to? No, because Crystal Ortega has to be moved to the second forum, so I think that's everybody, correct, Tim?
Correct.
You got a lady waiting, Kaylee Beaver's waiting.
Oh, yep, I see her up there now. Can we unmute her, Tim?
Hi, everyone. My name is actually not Kaylee. That's my daughter. My name is Rachel. I just wanted to share my story quickly. I'm sorry if I didn't submit myself. I'm new to the district. And my daughter is 6. She's in first grade. She's at Sugar Besh Elementary. I am a single mom. I have spent every dime of my savings so that I could remote teach my daughter. I literally can't do it anymore. Emotionally or financially, I will lose everything. There has not been a lot of cases in the elementary school. My daughter loves the school. She's a bright student. But we have to find a way to keep our littles in school, because I will literally lose everything. I don't have childcare. I'm not from Michigan. How can I continue? I mean, we're talking since March. Who could do this on their own? I'm begging the board to please keep the elementary students in school. They need this. She loves school. And I won't be able to sustain a roof over our heads if we continue to do this.
All right,
That's
ma'am.
all I have to say.
Well, thank you for your comments, and I appreciate your honesty. Anybody, anything else? Do we cover everybody? Not on the Zoom, so I'm not sure. Is there anybody else? We're good. Okay, looks like we're good to move forward. At this point, we'll turn the meeting over to Superintendent Woodside to review our current learning plan, the status of the district, and any other facts that he feels prudent at this time.
Yes. Well, I do want to share that, yes, I have received calls and emails and everything else from parents, and I do understand their concerns about their children, their mental health, and the academic loss this school year. You know, I've heard from staff, worried about, coming to school, and I've heard from staff that they want to continue in-person learning. So I just think it's important that, we respect all of the different opinions, viewpoints. This is a ever-changing
American Express.
challenge for the district, or all districts, and we're always going to base the decision.
3772-797.
So what I wanted to do is just share with the board and the community the facts as we have today. And what you're looking at, if you could put that PowerPoint up, Tim.
1 second.
And while he's putting that up, I want to share, this is a good time for me to share some of the challenges that we're having as a district. And one of the biggest challenges is getting substitute teachers. The substitute teacher list, all the districts in the area I'll be contacted, and if that building does have a shortage and we're unable to staff.
Leonard, hang on a second. I'm getting text messages that they lost the audio.
Done.
We're good?
Yep.
Okay. I'm not sure how long ago we lost it, but it's back on now apparently.
Okay. So I do each morning, I will get contacted if we don't have enough subs to cover a building, and I would close that building rather than the whole district. Now, if we ran into the situation where we didn't have enough subs for, the district, then that may be the case. Similar to what we do on snow days. And we'll send out that information tomorrow just to, make sure the parents are aware that if we run into that challenge, you have to be prepared, similar to what you would have to do for a snow day. We know that likely, in talking with the health department, that some of the additional COVID or the rise is likely some participation with, Halloween. In talking with the health department, it is also with some athletics and students coming to school. So can you go to the next page? Because what I wanted to share with the board are I wanted to share with the board, this is teacher COVID absences. And this is for the secondary. So you can see in that first column or box, it tells you the number of teachers that we have out for long-term or due to COVID. So at the high school, right now, we have 12 teachers out. The high school has a total of about 86 teachers. You look at middle school north, we have a total of 10 teachers out, long-term and COVID related. And we have about 38 and a half teachers in that building. And at South, we have 28 teachers in that building. You can see we have 9 teachers at this time out. So the next slide I want to share is the student COVID absences. And this is as of today's date. So this is going to be updated each day and it changes each day. And you can see that in the first box there at the high school, we have about a little over 1,300 students at the high school that have chosen face-to-face, a little less than 600 that are virtual. You can see the total that we have is 172 students out due to COVID-related issues. At one time, we did have 202 students out at our highest point. When we look at middle school north, we have a little over 600 students that have chose face-to-face, about a little over 125 that are virtual. And at middle school north, we have 68 students out due to COVID or related issues. And then the same with middle school south, you have just under 300 students that chose face-to-face and just over 250 students chose virtual. You have 118 students out at that building for COVID-related issues. I also want to share the elementary, the data we have for the elementary. So the teacher COVID absences for elementary by building, you can see and start.
Sorry to interrupt you, Lauren.
Oh, you're good. The teacher COVID absences for elementary. You can see Sugar Bush, we have about 16 teachers there. We have 4 out. Great Oaks, we have 1 out, 21 teachers. We have 4 out at Ashley, 29. Naldred has about 13 teachers. We have 1 out. McCons, we do not have any out. 19 at this time, total teachers, 29 at Lighthouse with 1 out. And then we have 14 at Lottie with 0. So you can kind of see the difference in the data from the staff for elementary and staff for secondary. So I also want to share student COVID absences in the elementary. And you could see pretty much across the board, and this is as of today's date, we do not have any students out for COVID related issues. Now that doesn't mean that it's not going to change tomorrow morning, but quickly I'll share, at Sugar Bush, you have about 175 students that have chose face-to-face, about 35 virtual. Great Oaks is almost 400 face-to-face with about 30 virtual. Ashley is 345 with 50 virtual. Nuldred's about 200 with about 25 virtual. McCons is just over 200 that are face-to-face with about 50 that are virtual. And we have Lighthouse with 400 face-to-face with about 50 virtual. And Lottie has about 235 with about 34 students choosing virtual. So I wanted just to share, that information with the board. I know that I had also shared it, earlier today, I shared some additional, information with the board. I wanted to, the board to note that the Center for Disease Control, when we look at their most updated data, I wanted the board to know that the incubation period for COVID-related issues extends, the median time averages about 4 or 5 days. So someone exposed to COVID may not know it or come down with symptoms on average for about 4 or 5 days. The concern that I had shared with the board president, Patrick, I had shared the concern that we do know that at Thanksgiving, people are going to get together. And we do know that from this information from the CDC, we know there's 4 or 5 days after that someone could have the symptoms or won't show that they're COVID positive for 4 or 5 days later or come down with symptoms. So the concern was, the concern is having staff back, right after the holiday when we don't know, or some of them would not know whether they're coming down with symptoms of COVID or COVID positive. I am not suggesting or recommending that the district be closed for an extended period of time. I just want the board to take into account, what the data tells us. There's a very low impact in the elementaries. There is I don't want to say significant impact in the secondaries, but it's getting close to that. I shared earlier, the concerns with staffing and should we be put in a position where we have an outbreak among the staff, and they've been doing a great job of social distancing and everything else, but should we have an outbreak, the possibility of closing us for an extended period of time due to that, is possible. Now, the idea of not bringing staff back the week after the, holiday, does that mitigate, eliminate that opportunity for COVID outbreaks? No. But does it minimize it? Yes. So I just wanted the board to take that into consideration, what the data tells us as far as COVID-related issues with teachers and staff by K-12. And we have the holidays of Thanksgiving coming, and we have the holiday of Christmas and New Year's coming. And we're thin with staffing, and the concern is it's a long-term plan, it's a long-term objective that we need to keep school open as long as possible. As we move forward, we all know that we need these children back in school. We need them learning. We know that we're still playing catch up with some of our students due to last year's early closure. And I think overall, the staff, students have been doing a fine job. I think there was a teacher had said she had shared how well she's seen the students in her building, achieving, but it doesn't change the fact that at the secondary, we do have some concerns. At the elementary, we're doing quite well. And I asked the board to take into consideration the information from the CDC and the facts that you have within Anchor Bay at this time.
All right, so before we move on, why don't I open up to the board and see if they have any questions concerning Superintendent Woodside's presentation. Superintendent Woodside?
The Small Business Administration provides all the information and online courses for free.
Your mic is open. Why don't you go
Your
ahead?
business plan, for your business structure.
Oh, now we lost her. Oh, we speak and they don't hear us. Maria, are you still out there with us? Do you have any questions?
Tim, do you see Marie?
She's there, she's muted.
What?
She's muted.
Okay, can you let her know to unmute herself?
She should be able to unmute herself.
Yeah, she's a co-host, so yeah.
Both Marie and Janine should be able to unmute themselves.
Okay.
Small Business Administration does provide loans.
Uh,
Investors for your business.
You unmute yourself or let us know if you have any feedback from Superintendent?
I've already unmuted myself. I've had exhaustive conversations over the past week with Mr. Woodside. So I am completely up to date. I don't have any questions at this time based on what he has just presented.
All right, very good.
But could you hear me?
Now I can hear you, Marie. Go ahead.
Oh, you couldn't hear me before?
No, ma'am, I haven't heard a word you said, if you said anything.
Oh, yeah, I said a lot. Okay. I want to clarify what Mr. Woodside is saying so I have a good understanding. What he is saying is we would go for Thanksgiving break, but then we would have 1 week following that break of remote learning, virtual learning, to put some time between the family gatherings and socialization and coming back to school. Then we're back in school face to face for those who choose it for several weeks. Then we go on holiday break for Christmas and we're off for 2 weeks, but we extend that a week again to give that additional buffer. Is that what Mr. Woodside is saying?
Yeah, I think there's a few options that, Marie. It could be 1 week, it could be 2 weeks after the holiday. It could include just the secondary and not the elementary. But the objective would be, at least one of the objectives would be knowing that staff are, likely to get together for the holidays, trying to prevent, them when they come back, having an outbreak. Or at least minimize it if possible.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page, that would be the purpose of extending that just 1 week, or whatever.
Yeah, 1 or 2 weeks, but yes, it's that.
Right. Okay.
All right, we'll bring it back in-house. Go over to Mike. Any questions of the superintendent?
No, I believe all my questions have been answered.
Lisa?
I think all mine have also been answered. I don't have anything else.
John?
No questions.
All right. Steve?
No questions.
All right, so if nobody has any further questions, I don't have any additional comments. Do we want to make a motion to follow the superintendent's recommendation? Do we want to?
Elementary that would be
Can't hear again.
Noise, Tim.
Could you repeat that? I couldn't hear a word.
You'll have to mute her. You'll have to unmute her.
I did.
I was making a motion for elementary to maintain face-to-face on the current schedule based on staff availability, as Mr. Woodside indicated. If we can't have staff, adequate staff, then we would call like a snow day. But I would like to have the elementary continue face-to-face on the current schedule.
All right, sir, so your motion is continue face-to-face on current schedule. Is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
Is that only for elementary, Pat?
I'm just segregating it, so I just want the elementary to be clear.
Correct, so I got a motion by Middlestat, supported by Burkmeyer. Discussion.
So that would not include extending the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday at all?
That's correct.
That is the motion on the floor. For elementary only, to not extend, to maintain the current schedule through, January 4th or January 10th, whatever that day back would be. No changes is the motion for elementary at this time.
I think just to, I agree with the motion, I agree with what he's saying, but I think we need to look at this building by building every week. And I think we need to put that on the website, like you are putting certain numbers on there, but it needs to be building by building. And if possible, I'd like to see, again, you look at the numbers aren't there in the elementary. Obviously, they could be after Thanksgiving and things could change, but it seems to be what we're doing there is working. But have the number of teachers out, the number of, if there is any COVID cases and any kids that get quarantined, have that by building, and then can we set some sort of, do you have, now you say that, you have it set up, you could call it like a snow day, 5:30 in the morning, how many teachers is it if you lose from a school? You don't have like a set number, so that what I'm trying to get at is that the parents don't think we're just throwing stuff against the wall. It'll be on the website Friday, the numbers will come out, and if by Friday of a week, there's say 6 teachers out and 3 kids tested positive, no school Monday. Some kind of a set thing, or at least just putting those numbers out to the parents so that they know the real numbers at their particular school. Because since the weekend, talked to a lot of, obviously all of us are getting emails from teachers, parents, I've met with a lot of people, talked to a lot of people in the past couple of days. The only one I seem to think there's an issue right now could be an issue is Ashley. And we might need to look at that, but the rest of them seem to be doing pretty good. But I just think we need to break those numbers down by building so parents are well aware of what we're looking at. So it's all transparent. It's all right there. We're not looking at Macomb County numbers. We're not looking at the state numbers. We're looking at their actual building.
So similar to what the data you've seen this evening, set it up like that.
Exactly what you gave us tonight, yes.
And you want that daily, Mr. Drew? You'd like to be able to see that daily?
That would be, yeah.
Well,
can you make that happen?
At least weekly, daily would be great.
Well, every 24 hours, because there's times we won't know the outbreaks till 7 o'clock at night.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's why the numbers sometimes, they'll jump or they'll drop. As far as what the, breaking point is for calling school off, that just, it varies. I mean, you have a little over 300 teachers. One building has a real low amount of absences, another building has high. I mean, it's hard for me to say when the number gets to this point, this is what I would do, because there's just too many variables in it.
The only thing I would ask you to do is if there's a breakout at Ashley or a breakout at any, not to pick on Ashley, but any school, that you address it at that school and not just blanket the whole elementary.
Agreed.
And say, okay, we're just gonna, because as everybody said up here, and I think everybody believes that we got to keep those little ones in the school as long as we possibly can. Judging by what's going on, after the first year, we don't know where this is going. So,
Well, to that point, that's what I had kind of been considering as well. Is there a possibility, because every building is going to be different. Of course, Naldrit with 13 staff versus Lighthouse with much more. So to say you're losing 3 in Naldrit, is a big deal, but 3 at Lighthouse may not be. And same with your sub availability. You know, we have subs that might only stay at certain buildings, or so. My thought was to possibly, and I think it coincides with what Mr. Giroux said, if each principal, in conjunction with yourself or any central administration, knowing their own building and knowing the ins and outs of, you know, especially at secondary, who has prep when and who's available to sub, if we could set if they could set with you some sort of critical staffing threshold where we know, okay, if high school is out 15 staff members, we just literally cannot cover this. And to know that ahead of time, and to be able to, you know, operate on those sorts of terms, might give at least some forewarning to people, like, hey, you know, we're at 14 staff members out, so, you know, we might want to have a plan, because if we have any more out, we don't have anybody to cover, and we will have to close the building. I don't know if that's possible, but it sounds kind of similar to what Mr. Giroux thought, like if we can set some sort of, you know, hard.
Just put metrics in place.
Yeah, set something where we know, you know, at this point, we know this is unattainable. So that it gives parents a little planning if they see it on the computer, if it's out there in advance a little bit, but also, you know, we also know we're not spreading we have our principals who know their buildings and know what's capable of being covered and not being covered, can also have some input as to, you know, look, because the problem I also feel like we might be having at the secondary level with the sub shortage is not only do we have enough people to fill those rooms, but if you have a different person filling that room every day for 2 weeks, it's not really great quality either, you know. So while we might fill the room and we might be able to push somebody in there and get it done, you know, we also have to look at, you know, what's the quality that we're doing, and at what point, you know, is it better to maybe be virtual versus having a brand new teacher every day for 2 weeks because yours is out on quarantine. So I think that's what we are kind of weighing here, and it's difficult because I think there's a lot of kids that need to be in school no matter what. They just don't learn well on the computer at any level, and there's others that could handle it. You know, and so I do want to also reiterate for parents, you know, don't work with your administrators and talk, you know, if you need to make a change, see what your options are, because what you need to do for your family might not be what I need to do for mine or Patrick for his. So if you feel like things are getting to a point that you can't, that it's not to your liking anymore, reach out.
Yeah, I think some of the challenges, you know, right now, yes, we are using administrators to cover classrooms. We're asking teachers to cover classrooms during preps. You know, we're taking it pretty darn, you know, close. And, you know, the challenge too is sometimes, you know, people get sick in the middle of the night and we may not know, you know, till 5, 6 in the morning. So, but I understand what you're saying, and if that's possible in certain situations, yeah, but we may, you know, most of the time you're not going to have, you know, a lot of advance notice on the number of absences.
Sorry, Pat.
I was going to throw it over to Mr. Middlestat. I'm not sure if you had an additional comment or.
No, I understand trying to get the metrics, but I guess knowing the education community that these professionals, the principals and the staff and that are doing the best they can to cover things. And yes, we all would like to know ahead of time as best we can. And I believe that's what they'll do if they want to put something on a website daily. But I know there's a whole script, you know, just having the ability, looking in the classrooms and the virtual, the complexity of those buildings and how they run and how I'm going to have to tap so-and-so to help cover a class. And I understand it's not top quality, but if you want to maintain face-to-face and not have the kids the parents deal with the virtual stuff at home. We'll try to do the best we can, but I guess I leave it more up to the professionals to manage their buildings and just make sure we're informed as best we can. I mean, like Leonard said, somebody calls in at 5:30, I'm sick. And I know the principals are doing a scramble to figure out, we're calling other buildings, seeing who's available, who's got a college degree that can come in here and cover this class this morning. So I believe they do the best they can. And I guess all the parents got to understand is that sometimes the weatherman says it's not going to snow and it snows. They got to be prepared to be able to handle their kids being home. And it's just, that's a good analogy of what's going to happen is it may not district wide. We call a snow day, it's district wide. It might be building by building, or if it's 3 or 4 buildings, it might be district wide. But I got to believe we're trying to do the best we can, and that the administrators and the principals have to do a hell of a job trying to maintain this system. So.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Mr. Middlestat, and Mr. Woodside, to what Ms. Burkmeyer is saying as well. I think what I'm getting at is just opening the eyes to the parents, to the data, to just showing it to them, being not that we're not being transparent, just transparent's the word, is to put that out there so they see what we see, they know what's coming. But, and I'm talking to a parent, they brought this up to me, and it's a good idea if it's possible, but like when you have what you showed us this weekend, where you have the number of kids, say 5 kids tested positive, 90 kids because of those 5 are quarantined, and then you have the return date of those 90. Well, we should be tracking, and maybe we are, but let's put that on the website as well. How many of those 90 came back to school without any incident? Because if you had 5 positives and those 90 were around those 5, and all those 90 came back and didn't test positive, didn't have any issues, then what we're doing in the schools is working. And it's a good way to track what we're doing. And if say out of those 90, 15 or 20 of them test positive, we need to rethink what we're doing inside the schools. And I just thought that was a great idea by the parent that I won't use their name, but it was a great idea. So I think if we could do that, that would be good.
Yeah, the data we would have, the parents would have to share it with us. But yeah, let me.
Well, no, if you know who's quarantined, and if they all come back, right? If they don't come back, then there's an issue.
Let me throw it over to Ms. DeWitt. I think I heard her trying to interject there. Maria?
I have some major concerns with the plans as you're putting them forward. I think that is a nightmare for parents to learn the night before that, maybe today we don't have subs, the next day we do, the next day we don't. And we have a pandemic. The hospitals are filling up. I think that right now we're talking about doing, and I understand that elementary do not do well in virtual learning. I get that. But I do have concerns even with the numbers at elementary, because there are a whole lot of secondary kids that have COVID. Elementary kids do not seem to have many of the symptoms that older kids have. And I don't even know if the elementary numbers are really reflective of the number of possibly mild cases we could have at the elementary level. And so not to do anything to cut back on the contact time, I think faced with the crisis that we have in the state, I think that we would be remiss if we didn't take some action at the elementary level to at least cut back on the exposure for the safety of our staff and students. Because it's a real serious situation, and to do it day by day, as I said, you're closing a building one day, and then it's open the next, or maybe closing when the subs don't show up. And I just feel we should be getting prepared for a worst case scenario. Let the teachers get prepared with packets that could be used perhaps throughout the time between Thanksgiving and Christmas, so that if we don't have tablets available, that students do have work that they can do at home without the technology. That's not the best scenario, but I do think that we need to be preparing for a worst case scenario, because by the day, those numbers are rising. And that's why I felt that the situation extending those two those 2 holiday breaks, at least would be an interim measure whereby we're trying to isolate kids. Because remember, those older kids are going home to the same homes that those younger kids live in. And we don't know how true those elementary numbers are. We know what's reported, but we don't know actually how many cases we're dealing with. I would like to see us be a little more proactive in anticipating some areas where we could further protect our kids and our staff that work in our schools, especially at the elementary level, which is what we're dealing with now. As we know, kids, older kids, they handle the virtual pretty well. You do have special needs kids that struggle, but hopefully we're not talking, for the rest of the school year either. But this is a real serious situation, and I don't think we're being proactive enough to protect our kids and our staff. If we do nothing but day to day are allowing our kids to do face-to-face, I think we should be preparing at least that perhaps there's going to be an extended time off there.
The only thing that I'll add, Marie, is, and I talked to the superintendent about it, there's one thing this board does do is it is willing to get together on short notice and deal with situations that need to be dealt with. Tonight's a case in point, 24-hour notice. We're all available and changed our schedules. I expect that as we move through this process over the next six weeks or so through these holidays, that if we're seeing numbers that become alarming, that I will reconvene the board outside of a normal board meeting. We do meet next week where we can kind of review what's transpired over this past week, make sure that the decisions that we're making tonight are the correct ones. And if they're not, I am not afraid to say that I made a mistake and backpedal and try to change something for the better of our community. And again, a meeting early in January is on my agenda, just so that we're meeting constantly and the board is being updated on what's happening and we can course correct if that's necessary. Janine, did you have anything you wanted to add at this point?
Sorry, I couldn't get it to unmute. I do agree with Marie in the regard that we should be looking at something to mitigate, because we all know, unfortunately, just looking at the numbers that the airlines are reporting, there's double the number of travel already listed for the Thanksgiving holiday than what you've seen over the past several months. People are traveling, people are meeting with families. We're going to have exposures after Thanksgiving. And to do nothing, it leaves me a bit remiss, but I also understand that we seem to be handling this in a different format other than one building at the elementary level. So I understand that Mr. Middlestat made the motion to leave the elementary as is for now. I do think we need to look at Ashley a little closer and maybe rediscuss something maybe at next week's board meeting. If we can look at that a little bit closer to maybe, because we have next week's meeting, that we might be able to look at the elementary a little differently between now and then. Vote on the motion that Mr. Middlestat placed before us. But then I do have some serious concerns about the secondary level, which I'll reserve to discuss during that when we get to it.
Okay. Mr. Moses, you haven't spoken since the motion's been made. Do you have anything you want to add? Anybody, anything else? We do have a motion on the floor. There was a motion by Mr. Middlestat, supported by Ms. Perkmeyer. Again, just to repeat, elementary face-to-face and really making no changes at this time to their schedule.
All I wanted to say is to Mr. Witt's point, I agree with you. This is obviously we all can see the numbers spiking in areas. We know we're going to be talking about secondary in a minute here. And there's some things to be worried about. And I would say that we are being proactive in the fact that we're going to track these numbers much closer than what we maybe are now and in a different way. And we're going to make sure that we're watching those buildings, building by building. But I think it's imperative we keep these kids in, especially the elementary kids, in the classroom as many days as possible, because I, for one, see this even after the holidays, like Mr. Green has pointed out to us, President Green, many times. we're gonna be meeting a lot after the first of the year. And if the winter truly goes the way that some are calling it, these kids might be virtual all next year. So let's get them as much in person, in front of a teacher as possible, while also protecting our staff. I'm not saying I want to put them in harm's way, but if we're mitigating it good right now, let's ride it. And then if we can always adjust if the numbers dictate it. So that's all. I agree with everything you said. It's just a different way of looking at it.
All right, so we got a motion on the floor. Mr. Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Brookmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. DeWitt?
No,
Go ahead.
no,
You said no?
no.
Ms. Anybody have a shot?
Yes.
Mr. Drew?
Yeah.
Mr. Middlestate?
All right, motion carries. Let's talk a little bit about secondary.
I do have something that I'd like to mention in regards to secondary.
Go ahead, man.
I know that it was mentioned multiple times, and I've had multiple conversations with Mr. Woodside that they want to extend the Thanksgiving break to do a week virtual afterwards. But if I'm sitting here looking at the calendar, I don't like the inconsistency of what we're attempting to present here. So you've got December 30th through, or November 30th through December 4th, and then maybe coming back on the 7th, or maybe, as they suggested, 2 weeks, which would be the 11th. But then you have less than 10 days before Christmas break. And then you're looking at doing another extension of a week or two. That seems to be very inconsistent in the classroom, out of the classroom, in the classroom, out of the classroom. We've all agreed that the secondary students can do it virtually online. Let's talk about some consistency. Let these teachers lesson plan in a specific format. Let them get some sleep. Let them be able to find a peace of mind. I've heard from a lot of them, the stress level is off the charts. If we're going to do that, take Thanksgiving break and move it through January 4th or 11th to stay remote. That is what I'm suggesting that you all really consider for more of a consistent plan, and to allow those teachers to physically prepare and mentally heal. They've been put through a lot the last few weeks.
So I want to confirm the dates. I'm definitely looking at my calendar. We'd be looking at basically the schools being closed or virtual. November 25th is the Wednesday we do not have school, through December 6th, returning back on the 7th. We would return back on the 7th, hopefully in person, and then go back out on Christmas break. Starts the 22nd or 23rd, sir? 23rd. Starts the 23rd. 22nd?
I'm sorry, 21st.
Our last day of school is 21st, or we're out on the 21st? Off of school, return for street. Then we go off on Christmas break, adding. Well, let's talk about it. What does the board think about that? Do we want to shut down in between? Let's have some conversation about it before we hear a motion.
I would say in the secondary, I mean, that's where, at least from the numbers that have been presented to us and what we've been hearing out there, is that the secondary is a mess. And we always knew, even when we went to this choice, if you will, virtual in face-to-face, that the elementary was different because they were able to separate the two. And then the secondary was tougher, one on the teachers, but also we knew the social distancing. We knew there was going to, there quite possibly could be issues. So I think if we're seeing these spikes and we're seeing it be a mess and we're having problems covering the classes, and from what I'm understanding, we have security guards, we have administrators, we have all kinds of different people covering these classes. If it's all the same, I see a lot of schools being able to say, all right, Friday, we're done. Monday, we're going virtual. Is that feasible? Is it feasible if we were to say, this Friday is the last day of face-to-face for secondary, and we're going to start going virtual Monday, and just do that through Christmas break? Because I don't see the sense in saying, whatever it is, the week or 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, and then I think you're breaking it up, you're making it even harder on the teachers to try to figure all that out, where if we know there's an issue, we're trying to stem it at this point. The easiest way to stem those outbreaks, stop it tomorrow. They go to school Monday. They all, from what I've walked around the schools, I didn't see many teachers that weren't live streaming and teaching the classroom. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a, change for them to be able to do it in this short of notice. But someone can obviously explain to me if it's any different. But that would be my recommendation. We stem this tide.
Ms. Burkmeyer, thoughts? If none, I'll move on.
I don't really have anything additional to add at this point. Mr. Drew, are you suggesting you'd still stay virtual like a week after Christmas break?
No,
Like we had just kind of mentioned earlier, or are you saying just come back after Christmas break and give it a shot?
I say what I would be saying right now is to go off as of Monday through the normal Christmas break. And then I believe we'll be meeting that first week of the year. And maybe we can even meet prior to it. And we kind of watch these numbers, watch how things are going without making that decision for something off in January. That's still a little bit, I'm assuming it might happen, but.
I agree. I really, probably my only comments is I really don't want to forecast so far into the future because, in September, what we said in August about numbers were rising then is nothing compared to where we are now. And so where we are now compared to where we may be, hopefully better, but who only knows, in a month, I don't want to push ourselves into a corner, because while we do have the ability to change it, people have lives, people have to make plans. So I don't want to get into forecasting too far into the future, but like you said, Christmas, we know it's cold and flu season outside of a pandemic is coming, and it's here. So I just caution us to not, extend ourselves too far in advance, because while we do have the option to reverse ourselves, people are trying to plan around our decisions. So.
And if I could just jump in, my intention would be, I get your point. I don't want to meet back in December and change the, flip the table on people and say, hey, now we're coming back, or we're gonna do something crazy like that. If we go out, it's gotta be a.
Is that what you were talking about? If we were to flip the script to come back after Thanksgiving? Yeah, no, I would say right now.
No, you're saying stay out.
Stay out. We make the choice right now, not even if numbers get better, it's pretty common.
I am not necessarily against that. I just want to say, I just don't want us to get in the habit of coming every 2 weeks and changing our minds, but also not trying to say, let's stay out for the whole semester. We literally don't know what 2 weeks ahead of us are going to look like numbers wise with this pandemic. So, just let's try to rein ourselves in reasonably. I think that probably is.
I would agree with you. And I think that right now it's mainly why I say to do it so quick is because we're having these issues, and it stems it. And I agree with you 100%. That's why I say don't do anything into January, because we don't, like you said, anything could change at that point. And we don't know. That's just too far. But right now, this is pretty in line with what colleges, universities, and many other they're doing. Not that we got to follow everybody, but it's pretty common that let's take a breather, let's reset, and then go from there.
Mr. Middlestadt.
I would agree that the 3 weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we should commit to that. I'm not certain whether I want to flip the switch. Give everybody 1 day notice that the kids are going to be home for a week. I guess how many days off do we have Thanksgiving week? 2 days or
Wednesday,
Monday
Thursday, Friday.
Tuesday after school, and
So we got Monday and Tuesday school.
I guess for Mr. Middlestadt, going, I'll just ask you directly, would you be amicable to going into the Thanksgiving break? So making it through next week, making it that Monday and Tuesday, then possibly shutting it down and looking all the way till January 4th where we're virtual on the scheduled days?
I guess I'm asking for some opinions, maybe from the superintendent or maybe from the secondary, from Joe. The reason we're here tonight, the reason we're making these decisions is because there's obviously issues. There's issues staffing, there's issues. Mr. Woodside has already said that there's been days he's already maybe had to call what he would call the snow day. If we're trying to stem that, let's stem it. And I don't know how it's going to change through next week.
Right, the next 2 weeks.
You know, and I hesitate to say that because I know there's probably parents right now saying, you know, what do you mean? But that's why, not that it's easier because secondary does include sixth graders, but I mean, I think this it's a little bit, it's not as hard when you're not counting in the elementary kids. So,
Mr. Moses, and then we'll go over to Mr. Woodside for some feedback on our comments.
My main thing too, if we go virtual, I know when we first went at the beginning of the year, we were able to offer services to IDPs where they were able to come in. We were able to offer virtual labs for people who are having connection issues. Are we going to be able to offer all that if we go 100% virtual again?
Yeah, we will. I mean, we're still waiting on.
Leonard, could you unmute yourself? So
Yeah, we're still waiting on about 2,000.
No, I'm talking about like if they have connectivity issues, are they going to be able to come to school at a lab so they can use our internet? And our IEP and our kids that need special help, are they going to be able to
Yes,
meet?
as far as the IEPs, yes, we would make arrangements for that. And as far as providing hotspots or whatever we need to do, we would.
We can still offer that. We can still get them in here if they need a connection like they did before.
Yes.
Okay, great.
why don't we go to Marie? I think didn't have a chance to comment. Marie, do you have anything?
I think that obviously the numbers dictate that there needs to be some drastic measures taken at the secondary level. And I think that we know that they can handle, a lot of those kids can handle the instruction using the tablets or the technology they have available. And so just by sheer numbers that we have at those particular schools, I think that it would warrant a little more proactive approach. So I would support their being out at least between Thanksgiving and Christmas, but I still am for extending the Christmas holiday as extra insurance, because we know that there will be a lot of interaction and exposure to the elementary kids during that time. So my preference would be at least a week after the designated end of the Christmas holiday.
Okay, thank you. With that, I will entertain a motion if someone wants to make one of what we want to do with our secondary students.
I'll make a motion to put the secondary students 100% virtual starting Monday.
November 23rd.
No, this.
Start vacation the end of the day on the Tuesday before things.
No, I'm Maria. I'm the 16th. Monday the 16th. With, I mean, she was put it in the morning. Trudy, like I thought that was already, Mr. Moses, I thought that was also going on, right? That, you know, they have the ability to come into the schools. That gets worked out amongst them. But
so your motion, sir,
Go
is
virtual and then
Go
until
vir-
when?
until the end of Christmas break, the normal Christmas
January
break.
4th is
January
our Monday
4th.
return date, I believe.
Yes,
So not extend at this point, the extra week.
correct.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it, but can I have a?
Let's have some
Yeah,
comments.
second.
Yeah, we
Sure.
can have some conversation.
Anything else you want to say?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Do we have any input? I know you said we're supposed to be getting some computers. I guess my only concern is this coming Monday is teachers only having tomorrow to do that might be a quick turnaround to try and flip. So maybe I would suggest maybe making like next Wednesday or so the day, just because, you know, they might be in the middle of a unit or something that they can wrap up that would make things easier in that sense to flip one day, and it seems like a lot to try and turn it around real quick and flip. That's my only thought.
Would you be amicable to moving it to the 23rd, starting virtual on the 23rd?
Yes, I'm amicable. That's why I said,
The 23rd is the Monday.
That would be the
before
Monday of Thanksgiving week. We wouldn't return. So we go to school tomorrow, next week, then we go to virtual vacation until January.
I guess that's what I'd ask, like when I asked this, Mr. Woodside or Joe or somebody, what's reasonable? Like, I just threw Monday out there because, again, if we're having the issues in the classrooms, if we're having the issues with cases, we're having all these issues, every day is a day that just creates more exposures. So if someone could enlighten us to what is a reasonable day, if it's to go all next week and then that Monday, I'm fine. I just, if it's reasonable to say next Wednesday, as Ms. Berkmeyer says, then I'm good with that too. I'm
I
not
guess
a teacher, so I'm looking for some.
We'll throw it over to Mr. Woodside. What's your comfort level and when?
Yeah, I think you'd have to give at least till the 18th of November, Wednesday, as Mrs. Berkmeyer was sharing, so the teachers can.
Leonard, you're
prepare.
probably not on my sir. This is important for the parents to hear. Sorry.
No, it's me. No, I agree with Mrs. Berkmeyer that we do need to give the staff some time to transition. So, you know, in doing so, Wednesday would be the earliest you could probably start. So you're giving the staff enough time to transition to virtual.
Do the new computers play into that, or, I mean, is the shipment like imminent, or do we not really have a?
We're hoping that, we believe we're gonna get 300 of them before the Thanksgiving break.
But
So,
no set date.
so before Thanksgiving, we believe we'll get 300, and that, right now, we have 240 requests for the secondary computers, so we'd be able to, you know, we would be able to cover
So if we
those
made it the
requests.
23rd, we would give the teachers a little over a week. And then hopefully maybe we could just have the new computers dispersed as well, possibly.
Yes.
So I'll keep begging and negotiating. I'm really hoping to get to that Thanksgiving week. Are you guys willing to work with me on that, or do we need to go out on beginning Thursday versus Monday?
Ms. Berkmeyer and I are always in agreement, so it's.
I know you are, sir. and that's-
We are working together to make sure that this is the best possible outcome for teachers and students. So yes, the 23rd, if Ms. Berkmeyer wants to make an amendment to the motion, I'll support it.
Oh, that was Mike, actually.
Yeah,
Or
so it's your
Mike.
motion, so you can
But
make
thank
it,
you.
and Mike have support.
Perfect.
23rd then?
23rd.
Are you amicable, sir?
We'll support it.
Superintendent Woodside, I don't normally ask for you to weigh in, but you're okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
So we don't want to put an extra week after holiday.
You know, I think, Mr. Middlestat, we meet next week.
Okay.
And then we meet again in December. You know, I understand that we would want to be pretty
Okay,
firm in what we're
okay.
doing, but
I mean, I don't, I guess I just,
That's fine.
I don't know if it's the will of the board, let's talk about it. We're still in discussion. I mean,
Sure.
if that's something that the board wants, I mean, I just think it's a long time to be looking out, like, to Ms. Berkmeyer's.
I would wait only because we do have a meeting December 16th, you know, and so even if we extended at that point, that's 3 weeks' notice, you know, because of the holiday break.
and your wily president might grab you the first week of December anyway. He's kind of cookie that way, so easy. All right, I got a motion by Mr. Giroux, supported by Mr. Moses, to go out to virtual beginning the 23rd Monday of November, and then returning at this point back on January 4th, allowing for the regular Christmas break to take place and any other days that are not regularly scheduled as break to be virtual. Mr. Middlestat, please call the roll.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. DeWitt,
Yes.
Ms. Ekbedi Hendershot?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Middlestate? Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
So,
Go ahead, sir.
so I had a question now, it's probably not, it's an administrative thing, but during this virtual thing, is it absolutely necessary that, or does it depend on numbers where the teachers have to be actually in the buildings to do these virtual? Is there circumstances where if there's a lot of staff people with issues, whether they could stay at home or not, or how does?
Yeah, I think.
I'm going beyond my board thing, but it's an interesting question I've been asked before is if the teachers got the technology available at home and we're asking them to stay home between Thanksgiving and Christmas, is that an option or is that, or if you get back to us, let me know that why it's not a good option.
Yeah, why don't we leave that discussion for next week if you don't
Yeah,
mind?
that's fine.
We'll
That's
back
a
together, but that's
question
certainly
I-
something we
yeah.
want to cover.
Yep.
Anybody other comments before I move on to union communications? Okay, hearing none, I'm gonna move on to union communications. Do we have anybody union-wise, sir, with their hand up?
Jamie does not have her hand up, no.
Jamie does not have her hand up, okay. Any other union folks out there that might want to address the board? I'll give that about 15 seconds before we move on. Ms. Petron wishes to speak. Ms. Petron.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I just, I would like to thank the board for recognizing the issues that we're having at the secondary level with staffing. One thing I just wanted to mention is, we're living by rules that we didn't make. None of us made it, and we have to play by those rules. I appreciate recognizing the holidays and that, we can potentially have more exposures. I'm concerned with next week. And I really think we need to keep an eye on that. Just to the fact that every single day there seems to be more students and more staff sent home. I also think we need to be, and I appreciate the board continuing to look at elementary and in watching those numbers. I think that's very important too. And I guess that's all I have to say at this point. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Petron. Mr. Sizemore, anybody else before I move on?
No union, no.
All right, let us move on to the second open forum public comment area. I do need to circle back to Ms. Ortega, if you can find her. She tabled her request to this session.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Are we good?
I can hear you, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, first off, thank you guys very, very much. This was a great meeting. As far as the secondary part goes, I'm in 100% agreement with you. However, please be prepared that over the next week before you are gonna remove students virtually, if God forbid, something should catastrophically happen teacher-wise, student-wise, obviously be prepared to make a change to that vote you just made. Second to that, the Macomb County Health Department is having issues, including in our district, with contact tracing. So be mindful of that. So even though we may have someone test positive, they're reaching out to folks who are not answering. So we need to be mindful of that too, parents, students, or otherwise. And as you mentioned, I believe Mr. Woodside said, about the 4 or 5 day exposure can also result in a positive. And we could have a much bigger problem on our hands than we're seeing in our numbers. But I just want to thank the board for that consideration, and no, we're not going to make everyone happy, but I think you guys did a very good job in your discussion today. And that's all I have to say about that. So thank you for that. And thanks for all working together to keep everyone safe and kind of lower those teacher stress levels down, because I know they're working really, really hard, every last one of them, from the elementary on up. So we're a team in this, and there's no I in that. So thanks for doing the same. And have a good night and keep doing a good job. Okay, guys?
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Tim, next.
Candace?
Candace?
Nope, you guys did exactly everything that I was hoping for this evening. Thank you for all your time and consideration. I was sincerely worried about our elementary kids. I am very pleased that you have made the choice to allow the elementary kids to continue forward. As far as the secondary goes, I also agree with your guys's decision on that. I do think it is just as important for them to be in school. I would like in the future, when we decide to go back or have the option to go back face-to-face versus virtual, that parents understand that they do have the option to keep their children virtual. They can do that at any time. That's their choice, as well as it is our choice when it is okay to go back to school to send our children back to school. So there shouldn't really be any kind of divide there. But again, I'm very thankful for your guys' decisions this evening. Take care of yourselves as we will all take care of ourselves. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one quick comment. It certainly does cause a little bit of a challenge with our teachers and our administrators, even our transportation folks, our custodial, our food. If we have people that are moving in large numbers from one type of schooling to another. So obviously, if we recognize that folks at some point may become uncomfortable, please reach out to your building administrator and talk to them about what your discomforts are, because it's wreaking havoc, quite honestly, on our teachers and our systems. We've got people kind of going through what has become a revolving door, and it's making it a little bit challenging for everybody. Tim?
Brian Powers?
Mr. Powers?
Yeah, am I there?
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so anyways, my original comments are irrelevant now because the decisions have already been made, but my desire was pretty much what you guys decided to do. So thank you for that, for keeping the elementary students in school. But I guess, can we clarify what the rules are for addressing this board? Because, you read the agenda, and according to the agenda, you're supposed to fill out a form online, give your real name, give your real address, so that everybody knows who's addressing the board, which I did, and I'm assuming it was a technology glitch, which happens, no big deal there. But it's puzzling because you contrast that with what happened at last week's board meeting, where we had public speakers line up using non-existent addresses and fake names, all there to support one particular board member who was up for re-election, and took that opportunity to trash other board members. And they got through to the public comment section. So, you've got a situation here where parents are paying more attention to these board meetings than they ever have before. They want their voices heard. And I think this would be a good opportunity for you to just clarify what exactly are the rules and procedures for the parents and the voters in this district for addressing the board, because there seems to be some inconsistency there.
So I'll answer that, Brian, for you. That's probably my fault. Honestly, over the last several meetings, I've tried to let as many parents speak and be able to voice their pleasure or displeasure or share an opinion or a concern. But you are absolutely right. In our board policies, people that wish to address the board have to fill out a form in advance. I was having some discussions with administration today, and we're going to get back to that for our next meeting. Obviously today we made a very, very large decision with what's going to happen over the next 6 weeks. And I appreciate you mentioning that and giving me a nice segue, but we are going to get away from the, raising your hand during the meeting, during the Zoom. You're right. I felt like it's gotten out of control a couple of times over the past 6 weeks. And again, as the president, that's my job to rein that in. And I'm doing that as of now. So if folks want to speak, they need to go through the appropriate channels, fill the form out, and then we'll get them called on. And I appreciate you noting that, Mr. Powers, because I think everyone on the board probably agrees.
Okay, just one other, am I still on?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, one other thing, is it personal preference, or is it a rule that we don't have board members physically present at these meetings. Because I live in Chesterfield, I watch all the township board meetings. Every single trustee is physically in attendance at every single meeting. And it seems like the ones who aren't here either don't have the technology infrastructure to properly attend remotely, or just aren't up to speed on how to use it. And it's very difficult to follow the ones who are attending remotely when they don't, like I said, they either don't know how to use the technology or they don't have the capacity to use it properly at home. Is there any particular reason why we have particular board members who are never physically present at these meetings?
Well, certainly, I don't want to disclose the reasons that anybody who is not present at a meeting. I want all of my board members to feel safe and comfortable. So basically, since March, we really haven't pushed as a board to make everybody come together in person. I believe at this point, the Open Meetings Act has actually been adjusted to allow that to take place. And again, I would much prefer to have all of my members here. I certainly understand when there are those that for personal reasons have chosen that they are safer at home.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Koch. I assume it's Terry Koch.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. My name's Terry Koch and I live at 52156 Thomas Lane. I am an employee of the district and I work at Ashley Elementary, as well as my grandchildren go to Ashley. I just wanted to make a comment that I feel completely confident with my grandkids being there. I think we go above and beyond in the district to keep everyone safe. The only concern I guess I would have is just because staff members are quarantined or out, that doesn't mean that they are exposed to COVID. That is all done on contact tracing. So some of those may not be a positive COVID case, but they're affected due to the health department's contact tracing.
That is correct.
Okay.
I appreciate you sharing that too, to make sure that everyone in the public understands that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Trevor Russell.
Trevor Russell.
It's Stan Russell. I'm okay right now. Everything's good. Great meeting. I appreciate everybody's involvement and I guess exposure to all this stuff that's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Scott, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, DERKACZ.
Scott? DeCatz?
Okay, yeah, I have unmuted.
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I have 3 kids in 9th grade. So a couple things. One, what about swim and extracurricular activities coming up? What are we doing with that?
Actually, I'll flip that over to the superintendent. I don't know if you're prepared to comment on that, but I actually got a text on that as well. I was going to bring it up in my comments. Where does that leave secondary athletics?
Yeah, at this point, we are still continuing, as planned, secondary athletics.
Okay.
There are discussions about pushing the start of some of the winter sports to past the holiday breaks into January. So that is a discussion, wrestling and programs like that. There is a discussion about moving those later rather than have them start at the normal time, but it's not serious at this point.
And also, sir, remember that, we do get guidance and comply with MHSAA. So when they hand out, guidelines or regulations, we're expected to follow that. So at this point, it sounds like there may be some changes. Everything's moving ahead as normal. But again, day to day, we could receive a memo from MHSAA telling us that something has changed.
No, I appreciate that. And I understand the teacher shortage, so that's obviously a thing we need to worry about. But I am curious. I really am curious on the the 14-day quarantined children, even the adults. How many of them are getting sick? I mean, I think and I understand this is a serious situation, but I just, how many kids are, especially the students, how many of them are getting severely ill as well? So, I mean, I know we're in a pandemic. I know it can be serious for certain people, but as far as I can understand, a lot of the kids do survive this quite well. Some barely get any symptoms. So I guess I just need to keep it in perspective, especially now. I know you've already made your decision, but, I know the teachers are important. So that's another situation, but we need to keep them in school as much as possible, especially with one of my children, has an IEP, and it just was dreadful trying to do this at home. Yeah, my one daughter is in honors. It was great. So, I mean, it's not the whole thing, but the IEP was definitely an issue. Dawn, would you like to speak on that? Dawn is a teacher in a different district. She'd like to say a couple words on that, if you don't mind.
I was hoping to speak before you made your decision, but you've already made it. I would like you to consider alternative options for students with learning disabilities. Like he said, while our honor student could do it just fine independently, and even our other child could do it okay, my son, who has the most serious learning disability, was frustrated, struggling, alone, at home, trying to just complete work, and was swamped. And I feel like there needs to be some kind of common ground where you allow them to maybe do a hybrid or have some tutoring or something. If you can have sports, if you can have elementary students, and what are you doing for your most at-risk learners that really need to be taught by teachers? So I'd like you to consider some kind of options where maybe they could go a couple days a week, and then you would have the building to space them apart where it wouldn't be crowded hallways, to really give services to those kids that need it the most.
I think that was what Mr. Moses was referring to. And I'll ask the superintendent to address that if you would give us and to get a plan together in a short presentation, because that's certainly on the board members' minds as well.
Of course, thank you.
Whenever you are ready, sir.
Heather W.
Heather W.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
I can.
Okay. Thank you for considering all the health for the teachers, the administration, the kids. My concern is, as you're talking to possibly extend it, with the virus spreading so quickly and people have their own opinion on, is it real, is it not real, who gets sick, who doesn't get sick, all of that really should go wayside. How about we all stay home for the holidays and not spread it more? Because as we come back for Christmas, it's just a short time, and then we have spring break, and then it's all over again. I personally have a kid off in college in a whole different state. They have completely canceled their spring break, which a lot of colleges in the area have did the same thing. I'm not asking Anchor Bay to do that. I'm asking the parents, the teachers, the administration, be smart while you travel over the holidays. Start a new tradition, do something at home. I don't know, it concerns me that we have all these kids in school and everybody's worried about them traveling over the holidays. Why doesn't everybody just stay home? It's not the end of the world, and that will help keep the numbers lower. And I do know certain states are asking people, please do not come here if you're from Michigan, New York, Florida, due to they don't want it rampant through their state too.
All right, very good. Thank you for those comments. Mr. Sizemore?
Marcia?
Marcia?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, good. I did try to get into the speak earlier, but I wasn't able to get through. I guess I just want to talk a little bit and voice my concern about only keeping the elementary students in during the entire time, because in elementary and middle school, they're prepping for high school. But in high school, all of their grades count towards their GPA, which get them into college, get them scholarships, which get them to what they need. When you have kids staying home, and I have an honor roll student, but wasn't on the honor roll because it was so difficult to get assignments and everything done. I have family members who are in all AP and honors classes who struggled the entire first semester when they were virtual. We're going to put this back on them and then say, hey, you're virtual learning. Now let's go back to school. Guess what? Exams. You're setting them back up for failure if they're not going to be doing the same thing. Because they're going to go back, have 2.5 weeks and have exams. How are you expecting these kids to be able to pass these classes or do their best if they're not going to get it? I just see that it's not going to work. And the district lost a lot of students because we were supposed to be virtual, then we're supposed to be in person, then our options changed every 5 minutes.
Need to quit letting the unions dictate.
We need to get our stuff together because I pulled one of my kids from the district already. Did I want to? No. But Anchor Bay did not offer services to help him where he needed to be helped. And I called and called and called and emailed nonstop all summer. And I called 2 days before school was supposed to open. If you cannot give me any answers, I will pull my child. And I did because nobody called me back. And I think maybe we need to start looking into some other options. That's all I have to say.
Could you spell your last name? The superintendent wants to be able to reach out to you.
Yep, it's PAQUETTE.
Heard that before.
And nobody got back to me until the week before count day. Nobody called me back when I said, I want answers for my son. I need to know what's going on.
Okay, well, I appreciate you reaching out to us. And like I said, Superintendent Woodstead has asked for your last name and information so he can make sure he can follow up.
Okay, thank you.
Tim?
Ashley, Matthew.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Ashley, are you
I was originally going to ask about sports. You guys have already answered that. But what I did want to know, is this something that you guys are going to decide as a school, or is this something that you're waiting for MHSAA to decide? And if so, when would we know? Because we're quite literally in the middle of trials right now. Is this something you should just continue as normal, or?
Ashley, I was having a hard time hearing you at the beginning. I think you asked about athletics. At this point, athletics are to continue as planned for the superintendent. And we do pull the plug, if you will, and will be at the direction of MHSAA.
Okay. Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Really? I'm sorry, say Amanda Stewart? Tim, was that Amanda Stewart? Is that who it was?
Yep.
Amanda? I guess we'll go ahead and move on. Sir, who's next?
Oh, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, all right, okay.
Sorry. So just to kind of reiterate what a couple parents had said, you guys know me well. Are we going to try and get some committee together for these kids who are special needs that cannot, even if it's a hybrid option, because if everybody's at home doing virtual and it's 3 days a week, checking in with their caseload teacher, their social work, whatever the case might be, are we going to try and come up with a committee? I had just talked to Miss Mayfield Monday because of a concern that everybody has been talking about it in neighboring school districts. Are we going to do we have a plan B? if we go back into shutdown and virtual, do we have a plan B? No, but it's something I've thought about. Okay, so now are we going to get some teachers together for secondary and say, hey, we need to come up what students were completely failing, what kids were dropping off, what kids did we not provide resources to that really need this, that they cannot get through it without the school. What are we going to do for them? Secondly, if we're going to even think about having sports and accommodating those things, then I would like to see some type of hybrid situation for the secondary students that need those valuable resources for them in their education. And thirdly, I'm going to agree with another parent. We're talking about traveling, but yet we're having a surge in cases, and we're all talking about, well, because we're gonna go virtual because of traveling over the holidays. Why is anybody considering traveling over the holidays? That makes no sense to me. And why aren't people being more responsible and staying home? And yet we're going to close school now because people want to travel over the holidays. That makes no sense to me. I know that we have gotten Nolan back to where he needs to be. I've gotten a lot of help, but I do hope that within the next week, we can come up with some kind of committee so that we can meet these kids' needs that were falling off their grade point average, their grades were failing. And now we've seen over the past month, we've seen their grades completely turn around because of the help that they've had from everybody over there at the schools. So that's my concern. I don't think anybody's come up with a plan B and haven't, we've had this meeting and great, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to meet everybody's, health, but has anybody thought about a plan B on this committee for these other kids?
Yes.
Okay.
As Mr. Moses mentioned, he requested the superintendent put together some action plans and some goals and share a list how we're going to bridge the gaps that we know that we're going to have over the next 6 or 8 weeks, and quite possibly could go longer than that.
Okay. So, well, then I would hope that someone reaches out to me and Nolan has already asked me 5 times tonight, what's happening, because that's how his mind works. So if someone can reach out so that I have a week to prepare him of what's going to happen and how this is going to work, I would really appreciate it, because his mind does not settle until he has a plan. And so that's all I would ask for, is that someone reaches out to me and gives me a specific plan of how we're going to do this so that I can settle his mind and his anxiety, and therefore he knows what to expect.
The superintendent has indicated that he's got your information. He will add you to the call list.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Tim?
Sony?
Sony, do you have a last name? Is it Sonny or Sony?
Hello, it's Sonny. Hello.
Hi, Sonny. Sonny, what's your last name?
Well, actually, this is his father. My name is Mike Zimmer, Zimmer, 31623 Hiddenbrook.
All right, sir, go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, well done tonight. I appreciate everything you guys are doing for us. I really just have one thing I'd like to bring up regarding the return date that you mentioned, and then a concern. First, I agree with a lot of what you guys said, except the return date on January 4th. This is something I want to bring up that you guys might want to think about. I know you have plenty of time to do that. You don't want to plan too far into January. I think you guys are doing a great job. You're a school board. You're trying to keep everyone safe, but you guys cannot control what other people do while they're traveling, and we don't want them to. We hope they're being safe. But my concern is the January 4th date, 3 days after New Year's. That might be too soon. We might want to think about maybe virtual for one more week because of that whole 3 to 5 days of people being asymptomatic coming in on Monday, January 4th. You might have a lot of people asymptomatic back in the building. So I just wanted to bring that up for you guys to think about. And then the one concern I had is on the contract tracing and how that's being done and handled. I believe my daughter's teacher has been tested positive for COVID, and I only know that through rumor. I don't remember ever receiving an email or a letter letting us know that my daughter might have been a a close contact for a positive COVID-19 case.
Well, certainly the rumor mill in Anchor Bay gets rolling, it gets rolling. So I don't know of any specific teachers, but
well, just to protect that teacher's privacy, I don't want to say the school or the teacher's name.
Yeah, I'm not encouraging that. And certainly with the motion that was made by Mr. Middlestad and Mr. Drew for the secondary, we recognize that we're going to be meeting again multiple times between now and Christmas. But if there's going to be a need, if we're not seeing what we want to see in terms of cases and safety for our staff and our students, that we have the option to extend.
I trust that you'll do that. I just wanted to bring it up. That's all, sir.
All right. Well, I appreciate your comments, sir. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you, guys.
Is that it, Tim? You got one more up there?
Looks like John's the last one.
Is that John Norris? Joseph. I don't need read classes. John.
Executive. Okay, this is actually his mom, Jenny Gnosis.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I have 3 kids at the district. I have 2 in the middle school at North, and both of them have IEPs. Although I understand the concern of the rise in cases, I think you guys have taken this very lightly, how impossible it is for kids with IEPs to do the online learning. My 8th grader was failing science in September. He had a 32%. And at the end of the card marking, just being in person, he was able to bring that grade up to a C. When I asked the science teacher, why was he failing? What about all of his accommodations? And the science teacher told me he couldn't do any accommodations for online learning. So I feel like you guys have made this decision without having a plan for all the kids that are involved. I mean, you're right away saying, yep, we're going to do sports, but what about the kids who cannot learn virtually?
So as I've mentioned a couple of times, we've asked the superintendent to verify what's happening in the district and make sure that we have a plan that can be presented to the board and to the public, quite frankly, next Wednesday to get us up to speed on what we're doing, what tools are out there and what resources are available, just so we can make sure those are publicly out there and we're all operating under the same impression of what's happening.
Okay, so next Wednesday, you guys are going to have a plan for kids who have IEPs who cannot learn virtually?
Correct. The request from Mr. Moses to the superintendent was to share the details of what's been transpiring and how we intend to get through the next minimally 6 or 8 weeks of virtual learning.
Okay, because my boys cannot do another month strictly online. It'll just break them.
I understand. I appreciate your feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it, Mr. Sizemore?
I see right now.
Okay. Looks like we'll close this public comment section of the meeting. We will move on to the superintendent's comments, although he's had quite a bit to say tonight. I'm not sure what else he's got left.
Well, I just wanted to quickly share.
The first thing we're going to teach the superintendent is how to use that microphone. Thank you.
Usually I'm so loud, I don't need these things, but no, real quick, I wanted to share that the Macomb County Health Department is offering testing 5 days a week now at no cost, no appointment. It's kind of like a drive-through. I've gone through it a couple times. It's at 380 North Rose Street, Mount Clemens. That's behind the jail there. So I think it's 8:30 to 5. And I just encourage residents that need to get tested. It goes pretty quick. I know the one time I was there, it took about 15 minutes, and the one time about 45. Also, Macomb County Health Department has an access number for Macomb County Health, mental health. And that number is 586-948-0222. That's Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. That's all I had to share.
Could you make sure, sir, that that's on our Anchor Bay's website?
Yes.
That information, just in case parents want a quick link to get it.
Yes.
If that's it, sir, let's go board comments, and let's start with Ms. DeWitt out there in virtual land.
I just appreciate that we are going to closely monitor what is happening at the elementary level. And want to assure parents that we're still trying to do the very best we can for kids. And I know none of this is ideal, but hopefully we'll get to it together. And I wish that it was different, and it's not, but we'll just continue to be to monitor as closely as possible and make decisions based on the information as we get it. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Hendershot.
I just jotted down a few notes here that I want to go over. One is a couple of things that some parents brought up, and I strongly feel that I believe Mr. McDonald is out there in virtual land as well, that you guys sit down and really evaluate the inconsistency of learning that our students have received since March. And with the upcoming exams coming in January, I feel that that inconsistency, in all honesty, is going to be very unfair, especially to students who have IEPs on file, learning disabilities, kids in virtual class settings, and just the lack of consistency. And I really think at a secondary level that we should evaluate suspending the traditional exams, the heavily weighted exams at the secondary level, and look to maybe give just a standard traditional test of the material with the normal weighting, just given the fact, especially now that we move back into a virtual environment right before exams, that we shouldn't be putting these children at a disadvantage that is negatively going to affect their overall grades. There has to be something that your teachers and your secondary director can sit down and come up with that will be easier to administer to your virtual students and your students with special needs, as well as the students in honors classes and AP classes. I know there's a curriculum there, but I think we really need to take a good hard look at not placing yet another barrier and stressor upon these students that they have been experiencing since last March. And I also want to reiterate, I was attempting, earlier in the conversation, when Mr. DeRue had mentioned, 2 weeks into January 11th, Mr. Zimmer brought it up as well. We'll have to reevaluate it next week, but you really need to listen. The CDC, the health department is saying the incubation period is several days. New Year's is going to be an issue to where within 2 to 3 days of celebrating New Year's Eve, you're going to have people who are going to be walking back into your buildings that may be asymptomatic, and that you need to take that extra week. Our local community college doesn't even return to school until January 11th. It's not because you want yet one more week of virtual placed upon the students, is you want another week for possibly symptomatic people to get tested and to stay home, and to potentially, limit the exposure in the buildings. So take a really good hard look at that as we start thinking about what we want to talk about at this next board meeting next week on the 18th.
All right, well, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Middlestat.
Yes, these comments about IEPs and students that need assistance, we really need to focus on that. I kind of believe bringing them in the building 2 or 3 days a week or something like that is very essential. But also there's other students I know that have had difficulties and got a bunch of zeros or their grades are low. I would assume that the principals are looking at these lists and see where these kids are at risk, and then maybe potentially coming up with some kind of remediation. We have some kind of grade recovery thing at the end of the year, so students can graduate. We should be able to look at some of these students and say, you know what, if I can get them in here a couple hours a week or do something, do some remediation to improve their grades or whatever. And I agree with Ms. Hendershot about the finals. I mean, I've always thought that the finals should be such that it helps your grade versus hurts your grade. So if you can do great in a final and raise your grade, great, but it shouldn't hurt your grade. So we should have I guess, at the secondary level, come up with some kind of procedure for maybe to help in that area, because it'll be really tough, way these the virtual net, which is to pass the finals potentially. So if they want to really study hard and get a good grade, to improve their grades, but if they're really struggling and they've been able to show mastery of skills throughout the semester in the opinion of the teacher, then that should count also. So it's a really difficult time, but again, I really think we need to make sure that those students that need get served services that they require. It's really tough with the virtual to do that. And again, dealing with the virtual stuff, you get a really good feel of the issues and the things that teachers have to go through on a daily basis. So it's been kind of eye-opening having a view into a classroom and knowing the complexity of what's going on. So I really appreciate the teachers out there, both in the classroom and I haven't been in the face-to-face classroom, but I gotta believe they're doing an excellent job there also. So, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Drew?
I just want to thank all the parents and the teachers, everybody that's reached out to, I'm sure all the board members have been over the weekend and into today. A lot of good conversations, and I think, obviously, I know it was talked about amongst the board, individually we've talked, some of these things we've gone back and forth in the, the virtual, non-virtual, this and that, but I think we're getting better at this, and we're having those frank conversations with the parents, and the more information we can give them, the better. And I think they appreciate, knowing more, and I just want to thank you guys for calling, giving us all your ideas. It was good. And then that's all I really got tonight, except for I want to congratulate Ms. Berkmeyer on her reelection to the board, and I want to congratulate Mr. Richards out there and Ms. Knox. It was a hard-fought election, and I look forward to working with you guys next year.
Ms. Berkmeyer?
Thanks, John. I don't have a whole lot more to add. I think we've been around the subject. I did want to share, I do get emails, and if people are unaware, Macomb County has a very good COVID-19 website that you can subscribe to, get their updates and such, and it'll give you, tests per month, total positive, it even tracks them into regions of the county and such. So if you would like to keep an eye on something like that, it's a great thing to look into. So it's something that I actually have pulled up right here. And the point that I want to make too is that while we do have lots of kids out on quarantine, we also just need to keep in the back of our minds that quarantining is largely, a precautionary measure. It's not, we got to remember that being on quarantine is, not a black mark on us. It's because we're taking the precautionary measures to keep everybody safe. And there probably are instances where somebody goes on quarantine and ends up with symptoms, but I believe from discussions with Mr. Woodside that those numbers are very low, very low. So if we also keep into consideration, even if we've had 50 or 60 positive cases in our district out of possibly anywhere around 5,000 people that are in our buildings at this point, I mean, our number is only ranging around 1% positive. And that's better than anything Macomb County has had since the pandemic began. The county is currently at 15.9%. Not to say that that's great. We certainly would love to be at 0, but you could argue that being in school is not as much of a risk as going to the grocery store. So I would think we also have to try and keep a lid on our fears a little bit, and realize that things are working and quarantining is keeping us safe. It's not something that we need to fear quite as much. Certainly we don't want anybody to have COVID, which is why I think the board's made this action tonight. But going forward, just to keep in mind, what the meaning behind some of these statistics mean, can help,
Moses?
Yeah, just, normally I have some updates of some great things that we've been doing around the school, and I had to lose my email that had it all on there, so I'm gonna bring that up next week. I know we had, our swim team did some great stuff. We had a couple of soccer players sign on to some colleges and a few other things, but I don't wanna go into it because I don't wanna miss anybody. Other than that, you know, it's been a tough year. I appreciate everybody that's reached out, sent me emails, sent me texts. It's, you know, we can't make the right decision if we don't know what's going on. I want to thank administration. I know they've had a tough job all the way around, from superintendent all the way down to the principals. Our teachers have been doing amazing jobs. I guess we can't say it enough. Just parents, please be patient. And I know things are moving faster and they change all the time, but I think that's kind of what was said at the beginning, is everything's going to be fluid. Things are going to change. We're going to try to get us back face to face as soon as possible, as long as we can keep everybody safe.
So I'll kind of pile on with Mr. Drew and Mr. Moses' comments. Actually, again, it's the drawback being the one to speak last. I agree with everything that everyone else has said. I especially, want to call Mr. McDonald's attention to to the comments concerning the exams and not punishing our kids because things are happening out of their control. So perhaps the superintendent and our directors can take a look at what they can do. I appreciate the administration and the teachers and all the way down to, I see bus drivers out there driving. I know our food service people are working hard and things are constantly changing. It's like you're on a treadmill and someone else is controlling the speed. So that's kind of my analogy for tonight. I don't have anything else addition to add. I appreciate the board getting together on short notice. I truly believe that we made the right decision tonight and the changes that we made in an effort to get back to face as soon as we can. We needed to do what we did tonight. So with that being said, I will solicit a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
I'll support.
One motion by Mr. Moses and 2 supports. Mr. Secretary.
Yes.
Moses?
Yes.
Green?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Mr. Drew?
Yes.
Mr. Middlestate, yes. Ms. Committee Hendershot?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, are you still with us? Although I got enough to end the meeting. Motion carries. We're officially adjourned. Thank you.